So some of the differences between for-profits and not-for-profit companies. Remember we talked in marketing, the first question you always ask is, who's the customer? In the not-for-profit world, that's not quite so easy. Would you agree that this university is a not-for-profit organization? Yes, please agree. I can tell you for a fact that it does not make a profit. There will not be raises all around this year. Who is the customer? Society is the customer. Okay, well, that's good. Who else is the customer? Are you the customers? Well, I'm going to get there. So are you the customers of this university? So am I the product and you're the customers? And then you talked about your parents, so maybe the parents are actually paying for it. So are the parents the customers? And then if we're talking about who's paying for it, well, the state's covering about a third of it. So is the state a customer? And then let's not forget that we all want you guys to have jobs, society as a whole to benefit. So this university is the Bay Area's, the primary source of workers in the Bay Area. So are employers a customer? And then let's not forget that faculty, are we customers or are we the product? Are you customers or are you the product? So from an employer perspective, you're the product. From an education perspective, you're the customer. So the point is, in the not-for-profit world, it's not as easy a question to answer as it is in the for-profit world. Because especially in health and social services type organizations, you have people who receive the benefit. You have people who pay for the benefit that may not be the same. Sometimes you have donors, and it's important to keep your donors happy. I used to work many years ago for the United Way, and one of the criticisms and issues with the United Way, it was really hard for them to fund issues that were perceived as controversial in the community, because even though those issues might have been important social issues, the providing public support for them might have turned off the donor base and shut down funding for all of the other work. So how do you balance the different the interests of different types of customers, different customer sets? Another issue is that many times customers actively avoid the service. Alcohol rehabilitation services. Some people won't go unless you are required to go by a court, and then you go, it's either that or jail. Another issue is the scope of the problem. I had a friend that was talking about just the whole not-for-profit sector business, and what he basically said is, if solving a social issue could be profitable, it would be addressed by business. If solving a social issue was something that was highly visible, it will be solved by politicians because it's politically visible. So the kinds of problems that are addressed by not-for-profits are the ones that aren't sexy enough to get a lot of media coverage and aren't necessarily profitable enough to be addressed by the for-profit sector. And they tend to be larger than any one organization can solve on its own. Well, example, higher education. The goal of the higher education system, would you agree, is that every talented individual gets the education that they need in order to fulfill their potential? Would you agree? So who's going to pay for it? And it's clearly in society's interest to have people working at their full potential. Would you agree? And so this is where normally not one organization, so we talked before, is you might be paying some tuition yourself, you might be getting some grants, scholarships from organizations, you might be getting federal aid, you might be getting state aid. The cost of tuition at the university is subsidized by the state legislature. So all of those combine to hopefully make it that every deserving person has an opportunity to get the education that will allow them to maximize their potential. But no one organization, well, in theory, the state was going to do that, but they turned out that that was a promise that was too expensive for the state to keep. Back in the 60s, it was the master plan for education was that higher education in California is free. And it's actually still free. You don't pay tuition, you pay fees. There's no tuition. Sorry. And then from a perspective of positioning, rather than positioning against the competition as you might do in the for-profit sector, you position yourself as part of the solution, as part of the network, complementary rather than competitive positioning.